Hey, Reinvention Rebels. Can you believe we are 100 episodes strong? 100 episodes of amazing midlife and older women who are crushing ageist stereotypes and stepping into the light to reinvent themselves in inspiring, bold, and unapologetic ways. And I am so appreciative of you being here for the ride. And I want to thank you with my free gift, 100 Ways to Reinvent Yourself in Midlife. I've got ideas and inspiration to get you started on your own reinvention journey. Just click the link in the show notes and download it in an instant. Let's get started and let's reinvent and get inspired together.
Like anyone else, Wendy, I have moments of doubt. I look in the mirror, I see the wrinkles, I see the gray hair, and I have to go, this is just my time in life. It's just something within, and you have to constantly say those mantras to yourself, whether you say them out loud or really say them, but I am enough. This is where I am supposed to be right here, right now. I am in the right place in my journey.
Welcome to Reinvention Rebels, stories of brave and unapologetic women 50 to 90 years young who have boldly reinvented life on their own terms to find new purpose and possibilities. I'm your host, Wendy Battles. I need to kick your fears to the curb, do it scared, and step into who you are meant to be in midlife and beyond. These amazing women, these Reinvention Rebels, can help light your reinvention path. Come join us and let's get inspired together. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. I am so psyched that you're here. I'm your host, Wendy. You are listening to a top 2% globally rated podcast, and Reinvention Rebels is all about empowerment. How we can empower ourselves in midlife to live with more purpose, more joy, and a sense of vibrancy that helps us navigate all the ups and downs, the angst, as well as all of the good stuff, and doing it in a way where we can step out and be our best selves, whether we're in our 50s, we're in our 90s, somewhere in between, or even younger. There are amazing nuggets of wisdom and lessons shared by my guests. So this is the place to come. If you're looking for information, inspiration, and empowerment, you are in the right place. And if you either stumbled upon the podcast because you were searching for podcasts about midlife, or maybe someone said, you have to listen to this episode of the Reinvention Rebels podcast, it's awesome, or in some other way, I'm so happy you're here. And I hope you are ready to sit back today and get inspired. And I'm going to tell you about my guest in just a couple of moments. But before I do that, I do want to talk a little bit about how we are kicking off the season. This is season 6 of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. Our theme for season 6 is something I love. It's Own Your Awesome. Own Your Awesome. There is something magnificent inside all of us. Maybe we haven't awakened to it yet. Maybe we're in the process, or maybe we've stepped out and we know how amazing we are. This season, my guests are talking about how they have learned to own their awesome, to recognize their gifts, to understand that they are amazing just as they are. And I'll be sharing some of my own stories during season 6 talking about this theme as well, because it has been an awakening. And some days I'm in that lane of owning my awesome. Some days less so. Some days you're like so confident you can do anything. And other days, for whatever reason, you're not. So we're going to talk about all those things during the course of the season. I kicked off season 6 a couple of weeks ago with a really amazing guest, Mimi Eisen. She's an amazing fitfluencer on Instagram with 200,000 followers, and she shares her authentic self. She shares inspiration. She talks about what she's doing to increase her strength, stay fit, stay flexible, what she wants to do as she ages. So many great insights. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to it, or it's the first time you're hearing about it, I am linking to it in the show notes. And I just loved the title, Midlife Reinvention at 60, Challenging Ageist Stereotypes, Creating Community, and Cultivating Joy. So just the title alone is kind of juicy, right? I know you're going to really enjoy that, and I will link to it, as mentioned, in the show notes. Let's talk about the amazing woman I have the pleasure of being in conversation with today. Her name is Kim Selby. I met Kim on Instagram, where I meet many of my guests, just because we have this amazing community of midlife women, this tribe, and we're empowering each other. And somehow I came across her and started following her and started watching the really cool reels she makes and what she's up to. And then she asked me to be on her podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about Kim. Kim says that at 66, she is constantly reinventing herself. And she says she is in Act 3. She has fueled her love of speaking and inspiring with a super cool podcast that I had the pleasure of being on last year called Ignite Your Spark. So just that title alone, Ignite Your Spark, is so cool. In her podcast, Kim shines a light on those who are awakening the light within others. So who are those people that have found their spark and are helping other people? That's what she talks about. She looks to assist people in stepping outside of their comfort zones by learning new methods of healing, as well as encouraging them to do deep dives within to access their highest potential. With white hair and a yoga teaching certification, she now does print and commercial modeling in order to practice what she preaches. You are never too old. You're going to love the story she is going to tell us and encourage us and get us thinking that we can find our own version of awesome too. Kim Selby, welcome to the Reinvention Rebels guest chair.
Thank you, Wendy, so much for having me. I am honored.
I'm excited. I had the pleasure of being on your podcast several months ago, and that was so much fun. And I'm so excited to return the favor and also to have a really fantastic conversation about reinvention, because you've reinvented yourself several times over just the last few years. So I'm really curious, Kim, what was your why for wanting to reinvent yourself, and what are some of your reinvention highlights?
Thank you, Wendy, for that question. I am one of those people who jumps often before thinking, but I know that the thinking is going on inside my brain all the time. And I think the reason that I keep reinventing myself is because I am excited about what life has to offer, that there's always more. I don't like to be stagnant. Let's just say I don't like to be bored. And I like to learn new things. And I don't want to sit around ever doing nothing. And things excite me. And I found during the pandemic, when I created this really big transition, a lot of us had to transition. We had to reinvent ourselves because the way we were prior to the world being shut down had to shift. Something had to shift. And I found, being an extreme extrovert, I was having a hard time because I didn't have community. I had my husband, and then our son lived with us for a little bit, grown son, and that was great, but it wasn't enough. So I decided to do motivational minutes every day to connect with people on social media. I know that sounds strange, but it was a great way of connecting with people across the world that I know or don't know. And I think I may be getting off on a tangent here, but that is why I started my podcast. I started a class called Ignite Your Spark during the pandemic because I wanted people to be for lack of a more erudite word, I wanted them to be happy. I wanted people to know that there is still happiness to be found, still community to be found, even though we were locked in our own spaces. And I knew that there would be an end out of this, or I had hoped certainly. And I knew we needed to all keep our spirits up instead of being depressed, because I like people to be happy. I like to be around happy people. And it's easy for me to find joy in everyday life. Not every day is it easy, but I can always be grateful for something. And I just decided to share those words with people and made that shift into creating Ignite Your Spark, the class, and then decided, oh, I think I'll do a podcast. I just believe the universe fed me that and said, it's time. Let's share it with more people. And that's where Ignite Your Spark, the podcast came in. But, I kept reinventing myself that year. I got certified as a yoga teacher during the pandemic online. And, I keep going because I personally love to learn. And I also feel that the world, the media, tells us as women over a certain age, you go sit in a corner and crochet now. Well, that's the old version. And we have so much to give. Every single human, I'm here to tell everyone, you have so much more to give. If you want to. Okay. Did I answer any question? I don't.
You did. And one of the things that I hear in what you just said is that you wanted to be happy. You wanted other people to be happy. That was the genesis, really, of how you started doing these moments on social media. But what I think is really interesting, Kim, is how things grew very organically. You started out with this little glimmer of, I have this little idea. And then that idea, as you got started, unfolded into something bigger. So it unfolded from, I'm going to do these little moments on social media, to I'm going to create this course, to, I'm going to do a podcast and reach more people. So I love how you looked inside, tuned into what you thought was important, wanted to be of service to others and really share, and how that really has grown over time. And I think this happens so often in reinvention that sometimes we start off with one idea, but we end up somewhere else. Still perhaps in that same trajectory, but I think that sometimes we start off small, we maybe play small. And part of what I hear from what you just said is that you have been in a period of expansion, that you are expanding personally, and that's reflected in how you are sharing even more broadly with the world. And I love that, because I think that's a great example of what reinvention can look like for people that are listening and they're like, well, I have maybe a tiny idea. They can hear your story and see how things can evolve, often in ways we don't expect.
Thank you. I think you need someone in your corner. You need people like you in your life. Everyone does, because we all have that, I'm not good enough, I am an imposter, this is not real. And then when you get feedback from someone whom you admire, or even someone with whom you reside, you're doing a great job, you are making a difference. I think that's really important to look for those people in your life during your reinvention phase.
I totally agree. And I call that having a reinvention dream team, which are those people who are your biggest supporters, like you were suggesting. It could be a spouse, a friend, a family member, a colleague. It could be really anybody. But to your point, Kim, those people that believe in you, that believe in your dream, that when we're having a down day and we're doubting ourselves, can say, Kim, you've got this. Kim, right? You're going in the right direction. I'm so with you. I think that makes a huge difference.
And also, Wendy, I think it's really important to be open. You may have the germ of an idea, and I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and I know that's somewhat overused, but it is so true that everything is energy. And when you put something out into the universe, be it positive or negative, and you focus on it, well, chances are that that is going to happen. And you need to be open. I had the germ of an idea, and I was just open to whatever thoughts came my way, to whatever people came my way, and I listened. And I think it's really important to, as you had said, what's your why? And my why is to, at this point, help people through my speaking increase their self-esteem, be happier, more joyful, so that they can live a purpose-driven life, get up every day and go, okay, I like this day. Today's going to be a great day. Because again, what you put out into the universe comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And this idea of being open that you mention really is important, because I believe that we have deep inner wisdom. I believe that the answers that we seek are within us. And when we are open, as you're suggesting, when we're listening, when our personal radar is on, we can figure things out, I believe, with more ease. It doesn't have to be, because, Kim, I've spent a lot of time making things so difficult in my life over the years. I've been the queen of, let me see if I can make this even harder instead of easier. And that openness to me is a key ingredient in reinventing ourselves with more ease, that we can ease into it in this really joyful way. I really love that. But I also know on the other side of that when we reinvent ourselves, we may also face challenges. And of course, each of us has different challenges, whatever they might be. What's the biggest challenge that you faced on your own reinvention journey, and how did you overcome it? Are you thinking, I'll have some of what she's having? Reinvention rebels are amazing, as you can hear from our discussion. They've put themselves first, decided their dreams matter, and are taking action. They have unleashed their inner rebel and are living on purpose in midlife. Are you ready to start putting yourself first and embark on your midlife dreams, focused on what you want, not others' ideas of what you should do? Come check out my new audio course, Midlife Reinvention from the Inside Out. 8 Essentials to Greenlight Your Life. I share my roadmap to get you started on your reinvention journey with the key components you need to navigate detours and get on the road to smooth reinvention sailing. Sis, it is time to give yourself the green light to shine in midlife and crush those dreams of yours with joy and purpose. Join today and let's reinvent and get inspired together. Details are in the show notes.
Honestly, the biggest challenge was a technical one, was learning how to edit my podcast for that portion of my journey. That was more of a very technical. And not because I think you can achieve anything. You just have to slog through. That was just sort of a minor challenge in a way. You just have to ask for help, and you have to find the right people to assist you on your journey. There was no challenge when I did this yoga teacher training, although the challenge was not being in a classroom with people, not being in physical. That was a challenge, but you just make it work, because I say, now what? So what? Something happens. Okay. So what? Let's find the solution. Let's find someone to assist you with it. I really, really, really am stepping out into a speaking career, something that I know I've been meant to do for many, many years. And the challenge was finding the right coach, the right group, but I put it out there and it came to me. I feel fortunate in that the challenges thus far have been minor. And when a challenge comes, I attempt to overcome it and then don't think about it anymore, so that I'm not focusing on those challenges, but I'm focusing on what's to come, on what's ahead, on grateful that I have gotten through that challenge. Now what? So what? Let's keep going.
I love now what, so what? Let's keep going. I love this idea of figuring out what the challenge is, addressing it, and then moving on, because I think it's that sometimes we can get so stuck on what's wrong or what's hard, and that can prevent us from moving forward. That can be a roadblock for many people reinventing themselves, or just generally in life. So I like that idea of, I'm going to give it a little attention, I'm going to try to figure it out, but then I'm going to really move on and continue. And I think that can make such a difference. And speaking of challenges, I know in our pre-interview, one of the things that you mentioned is that you reinvented yourself as someone doing commercials. And I know in a world that's youth obsessed, we don't see a lot of older people in commercials, although that is changing. And I'm seeing more and more of people like us who are in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, who have silver hair, who are doing amazing things. But I'm really interested in this idea of the challenge, because it seems like reinventing yourself in that way, where you have to put yourself out there, would lead to a lot of challenges in rejection, feeling like I'm not good enough. I don't know. Maybe that's not the case for you. I'm kind of guessing, but can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. That is the biggest challenge. In fact, I did decide in 2021 that I wanted to be in commercials. I had always wanted to be an actress. I tried in my 20s, couldn't get an agent, had the wrong look, was too young, was too old. It didn't work, and I got frustrated. So I stopped trying and did community theater. Musical theater has always been my love. And then I decided I worked, and you have children to raise and volunteer and work. And I decided in 2021, why don't I just try and relaunch this, acting career from 40 years ago? And I joined some online places where they send you information on commercials. And I got a couple of pretty big ones just by using selfies I had. And I was like, whoa, this is fun. Okay, I love this.
Cool.
Agency. And I got a couple of things through them, but I still was self-submitting. And then a woman on Instagram reached out, and she's become my LA manager. And through her, I get a lot of auditions. Now, let's talk about this. I audition and audition and audition and audition. You never hear if you don't get a job. So you assume once the date of the shooting has come and gone, well,
guess they forgot about me.
And honestly, I am very frustrated with it. And I did one fabulous commercial for Harper Wilde. I will shout them from the rooftops because it's an intimate apparel line that is age inclusive, body inclusive, gender inclusive. And I was blessed. There were 3 of us over 60 in this. I was in my underwear. Yes, indeed. So were they. It was really an amazing company to work with, and such an experience where I was treated like a human being and not the white-haired grandma.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of UGC, user-generated content ads for Medicare. And it's always older things.
Yeah.
And that's really a big message of mine, is that we also have spending power. We also like cute clothes. We like products. We are not the grandmas. I'm not a grandma, even though I'm the age I could be. I'm not. We're not those people, baking in the kitchen all day long. Not all of us, at least. The media really just still has that image. I auditioned for so many Christmas commercials this year that got none of them, because I'm too thin, I think. You don't know the feedback, but I don't look like a typical grandma serving dinner. I'm like, I am frustrated, Wendy. I am frustrated. And it is challenging. Yeah. That, to me, that is the biggest challenge in that arena of my life, is picking myself up and going, okay, but I keep going. And that is why I decided to transition more into inspirational speaking, because they don't care about my age. They care about my message. Right. And my message is, you are never too old. Yeah. One of my messages. I have many, of course. I do get frustrated. That rejection is real. But I will tell you this, not to really go off track, but in my 20s, I worked at an advertising agency, and I worked in the casting department and production. And I saw these women with their young children, and they would feed them M&Ms to get them to do their commercial and all that. And I thought, I am never going to do these people, just blah, blah, blah. I saw what the casting directors would say about people, and they'd be like, no, not right. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong. And I'd be like, how can anyone stand that constant criticism? And I realized they're doing that to me.
It's like a full circle moment. You're like, wait a minute.
But I don't see them now that everything's virtual. You don't know.
You don't know.
The casting director, you don't get any feedback, nothing.
Yeah.
So you just have to delve into your inner strength and go, so what, now what?
So what, now what? So what, now what? I love that because I think that you're setting this great example of what it means to put yourself out there, to have a passion, have an interest, to pursue it. You don't always know how it's going to work out, right? And there's highs and lows like everything. When we reinvent ourselves, we'll have moments where things are going really well. We'll have moments where maybe we're in a downward spiral. But I think that all of those experiences help us build these skills of resilience, of persistence, of knowing that sometimes we might do something that doesn't pan out the way we want, but maybe it's part of the bigger picture. Maybe it's the skill we need to learn that's helping us on our journey. Maybe doing all of the, this is one of your stepping stones, doing the ads, and it doesn't mean that you won't do more ads. But you're learning important things about that and about yourself through this experience, even when it's challenging. And I think, to me, that is the essence of reinventing ourselves. It's being open, as you said, to the lessons that are all around us and the experiences that aren't just the final destination, but to me are part of the journey, that's just as important as getting to whatever that endpoint is.
Absolutely. In fact, that old saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And you don't know, there might be a fork in the road that you take because of something you pursued that didn't work out the right way. And you go, oh, well, maybe I'll take that. It's about stepping over the challenges, going through the challenges, taking the yellow brick road to your own version of Oz, and think about all of the things that you encounter along the way, and the growth and the passions that you will develop.
Yeah, exactly. So much possibility. Well, that really leads me to this question, Kim, about getting started. People are listening. They're hearing what you've done. They're saying, well, Kim's pretty amazing. She's done all these different things. She's reinvented herself in many different ways. She's been very open. She's overcoming challenges as they show up, and yet not trying to get too focused on the challenges in a way that impedes her. But someone is probably listening and saying, those are all great things, but I don't know how to get started. I have this little inkling of something like you did when you said during the pandemic, but we can be filled with uncertainty, with doubt. We might be scared because we don't know what's on the other side. What's one piece of advice you have for our listeners about how they can take that first step toward reinventing themselves?
Okay, Wendy. Well, one step, one thing. No, I can't think of one.
Not just one.
Honestly, the thing that I have also a creativity coaching certification. I have a lot of different hats that I have worn and do wear. And the most important thing is to get still, which has been something that is so challenging for me. To meditate, close your eyes, because as you mentioned earlier, the answers are within. And I highly recommend that someone close their eyes for 5 minutes and just get still. You don't have to think. You don't have to say anything. Close your eyes, set a timer, open your eyes, and write down the first thing that came to you. You have to build up that inner knowing. And the only way to do that is to take time for yourself to uncover, to unleash. Sometimes it's better to jumpstart and fail than to not start at all. And if you are really serious about pursuing a passion, you take one teeny, teeny, tiny step towards it every single day. Whether it's doing research, if you want to be a home chef, Google how to be a home chef. Take 5 minutes, set a timer, okay? Because it can be overwhelming when you're starting something new. But if you're taking a teeny tiny step towards your goal, towards your ambition every day, before you know it, you will be increasing those steps and you will have learned something and you'll go, whoa. It's as if someone wants to start exercising. I would recommend they walk in place for 5 minutes the first day, and then maybe go outside the next day. Eventually, you build up the muscles. You build up your leg muscles for strength. You build up the muscles in your brain to learn new things. It's all about starting, and it's all about failing, and it's all about asking for help. And then I have ways to work with people because I have done intuitive sparkle coaching. I still do a little bit, but not a lot. if someone wants to do something, they want to get off their hiney and they are stuck, I have them write at the top of a piece of paper, what did I want to be when I was 7 years old? And have them write down all of the things they might have wanted to be. I don't know, whether it was a firefighter or a ballet dancer, politician. And then I have them write down the essence of those things. Why? Why did you want to be that? And sometimes it's no more than just being a child and admiring someone, but sometimes it's something that really sparks a love inside of you. And I encourage people to try to do something that brings that same essence to them. If you wanted to be a firefighter, go volunteer with a volunteer fire brigade. If you wanted to be a ballet dancer, take a ballet class. Do something that ignites that same feeling within that you had when you were a young child, when the world was full of possibilities.
I love it. There's so many different things we can do to just get started, to get some help, to lean into other people, to be willing to fail as a teacher on our journey. I mean, there's so many different things we can do. This is such great advice. And I love the idea of just getting quiet, writing it down, seeing what bubbles up. To me, that is the essence of how we get started, by looking within and then calling in sort of the troops, to help us. And that's how I got the wisdom about Reinvention Rebels. It was when I was meditating and it just bubbled up and I heard Reinvention Rebels. And I was like, what is that? I mean, who knew that just hearing those two words over 3 years ago could lead me to all of this? So I am so with you on the looking within, the tuning into yourself, asking for help. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can do it. And you just capture that so beautifully, which of course is why people are going to have to follow you and find you, which we'll talk about before we wrap up today. But you have so much wisdom, so many great ideas to share. And so many people are seeking and trying to figure out, well, now what? So what, now what? That you talked about that I think is so important. I do want to ask you as we start to wrap up, Kim, I want to talk for a moment about this season's theme of the Reinvention Rebels podcast, which is Own Your Awesome. And I see you doing that all the time. I believe we all have a hidden genius. There's something that we all shine at. I know you feel the same way about that and help people tune into that brilliance that's within. So I'm curious about how you personally, I know you help other people with that, but how are you personally leaning into how awesome you are and owning your greatness?
Like anyone else, Wendy, I have moments of doubt. I look in the mirror, I see the wrinkles, I see the gray hair, and I have to go, this is just my time in life. It's just something within, and you have to constantly say those mantras to yourself, whether you say them out loud or really say them, but I am enough. This is where I am supposed to be right here, right now. I am in the right place in my journey. I am not 30 years old anymore. I am not like those other youth. I am who I am. I think we have to constantly acknowledge ourselves. And I just think that every time in life is special and unique, and we have to embrace that. We have to look past the naysayers, and how I do it is just by being myself and being that overused word, authentic. But I'm on social media. I do not color the way I put myself out on TikTok. I do it without makeup. I just want people to know I'm giving them permission as much as I'm giving myself permission to just be who you are. And when I look back at something that I have created very quickly and organically on social media, and it makes me laugh because I make myself laugh, then I'm like, okay, that's good. If you can make yourself laugh, that is how I keep going, because I think I'm funny sometimes. And that I I just know I'd rather be here than not here. So let's embrace the me that is today. Now, do I do, facials and things to, help me look good? I work out all the time. Those are things that make me feel good about myself. And I just do the best that I can. I'm one of those people who does embrace a Pollyanna philosophy. For those youngsters listening won't know Pollyanna, but I just like to be happy. And I know that when I am truly happy, I am truly shining on the outside as well. And I, again, don't know if I answered that question, but
you did. You are owning your awesome. Trust me. And the essence of it and what I heard and what you just said, Kim, is you're owning your awesome by being your authentic self. And to me, that is everything. And I think that that's something that we all want to aspire to, especially as we age. I know that sometimes we are so many other things for so many people, especially women. We're so busy trying to please other people that we often don't please ourselves. And then we get to that point where we're like, wait a minute. What does Wendy need? What does Kim need? What do we need to be awesome? And that idea of authenticity to me is so key. It's one of those clues. And I think that, this whole season, we're going to be talking about this idea of how do we own this? How do we really acknowledge, as you're saying, that we are great, that we are perfect the way we are, that we don't need to change for anybody, that when we show up and, some days we're great, some days we're not, that's owning our awesome. That's still doing that, but in a very real way. And that says everything to me, that answer that you just shared with us about being your best. So yes, you answered that beautifully.
Okay, good.
Beautifully. As we wrap up, I know that so many people are listening and have gotten inspired by what you had to say, by hearing about your reinvention journey, by hearing about both the challenges and the joys, right? It's never as, nicely packaged as I'd like it to be. I always have this image and then there's the reality. When I'm falling apart and ugly crying and then trying to piece myself back together to keep on that journey, as I know you can relate to as well. So people are like, Kim Selby, I want to know you. I want to follow you. Where can people find you?
It's very simple. My website is kimduffselby.com. I'm on Instagram at Kim Duff Selby. I'm on TikTok at Kim Duff Selby. I'm just always Kim Duff Selby.
I love it. And I will include all of that in the show notes so people can easily access you, start following you, and really soak up your wisdom and inspiration as you have shared with us today. Kim, I cannot thank you enough for gracing me with your presence in the Reinvention Rebels guest chair.
Thank you, Wendy. You are awesome. You are an inspiration. And what you are doing is inspiring so many women to take that next step into their own reinvention. I am honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. This was awesome. I hope you loved this episode as much as I did with Kim Selby. Isn't she amazing? I love the insight she shared. I love how she has stepped out and is doing commercials, how she, of course, is dealing with the rejection, but that's not stopping her, right? So I feel like that's a powerful lesson for all of us. We must persist. I loved, so what, now what? So what, now what? I think that's going to be my new phrase. Things don't always work out the way we want them to or expect them to. But what if we adopted this so what, now what approach to life? I love that it could spur us on. One door might close, but there are always more doors to open in midlife. And that phrase really embraces that for me. And did you hear her talk about this idea of getting quiet and still? I talk about that. You may have heard me talk about that if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. That we have all the answers there within. We don't have to do all this wrangling and turning ourselves upside down. I mean, we can do that, but we could make it easier on ourselves if we slowed down, got quiet, looked within, and listened to that wisdom. That's waiting for us. It's right there underneath the surface. But when we're running around all the time, feverishly trying to figure things out, we're too busy to hear it. So that's why it is we have to peel back those layers and uncover, excavate what's down there. And that can really lead us and help us with that direction that we seek. I hope this episode inspired you. I hope this got you thinking about your own life. I hope you're noodling on midlife and how you can either get started on following your dreams or exploring your dreams, or you can continue, or it encouraged you to navigate around the obstacles, which of course always come up. But I hope this really will get you into action. And I want to continue to encourage you. So I've got 3 things I want to encourage you to do. Do 1, do 2, do all of them if you like, but midlife is all about taking action to move our lives forward in the ways we want. So one thing you can do is to follow Kim, follow myself on Instagram. All the information is in the show notes or many of the other social media platforms we're on, because that is about encouragement, inspiration, and empowerment. And we are there with so many amazing other women doing that. So 1, get into this conversation that we're having, join us, and we can all grow together. Number 2, if you love this episode, if you found encouraging things in this episode, I want to ask you to do me a quick favor and rate and review this podcast. Especially if you're an Apple Podcast listener, it's super easy. You can find Reinvention Rebels easily. Give me a 5-star review. And the reason why I say that is the more of those I get, the more searchable and findable the podcast is. And the whole point is I want to encourage as many women as possible. And I want to make it easier for them to find me. And number 3, if something awoke in you when you heard this idea that we talked about of getting quiet, of looking within, of beginning to think about what could be possible for you, I invite you to check out my 8-part course. It's an audio program called Midlife Reinvention from the Inside Out. 8 essentials to greenlight your life, because it's all about helping you get out of the starting blocks and doing that in this very mindful, soulful way. Details are in the show notes, and I hope you'll come join me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited you were here, and I can't wait to chat with you in our upcoming episode. My next guest that you're going to meet, like everyone else, is truly extraordinary. Her name is Bettina Peets, and you're going to hear all about the cool things she is doing with outdoor adventures for midlife women to inspire us. So from midlife crisis to midlife courage is our topic, and it's going to be another great episode. Until then, keep shining your light. The world needs you and all that you have to offer. Are you tired of waiting for someday? Feel like you're too old or it's too late to reinvent yourself? Unsure of how you'd even get started on the path to midlife reinvention? I'm here to help as your guide on the side and host of the top 2% globally rated Reinvention Rebels podcast. I've been around the reinvention block a lot. Here's a simple way you can get started. Sign up for my free audio, 5 questions to spark your curiosity and inspire your reinvention rebel journey. It all starts with getting curious about what's possible. And I've got 5 questions to help tease out some very cool ideas. Let's get started. Details are in the show notes.